Well, it is 1 o'clock, so we are going to go ahead and get started. Welcome to our live webinar today. We are going to be discussing how to create an accessible syllabus. And our host today is Stephanie Rogers, and she is our ADA specialist. So welcome, Steph.
Thank you, Sarah, and welcome everyone this afternoon. Can you see my screen okay, the PowerPoint? Sarah, can you confirm that it's showing correctly?
It is for me. Is anyone having any trouble? Just let us know in the chat box.
Okay, perfect. Looks like it is working. So again, welcome today, and I will be talking about how to create an accessible syllabus using Microsoft Word. But first things first, I want to share some basic accessibility principles with you that will help you in creating an accessible document. So some items that we'll be going over are headings, alternative text, color and color contrast, links, tables, lists, and fonts. And then I will get into showing you how to create your accessible syllabus. So with headings, headings help facilitate navigation and add structure to your document. They also create a properly structured document that is easy to navigate for screen readers, which is super important. Let's see. So headings for headings for Word documents can be made through the styles under the ribbon, which I'll show you later. So I'm just going to give you a little bit of information about it, and then I'll show you how to do all of this in an actual Word document. So it's important to know not to use bold, italics, or underline as a way to create headings, because that doesn't add any markup to the actual headings, and a screen reader won't be able to navigate that. As for alternate text, it's important to add good alternate text that actually describes what's in the image. So if you look over here, you see this image here of a cave painting. So if you just put in there a cave painting of two deer, I mean, yes, it's somewhat accurate, but it doesn't actually give any context to what the image actually is. So up here, a good alternate text would be an ancient cave painting in France showing two deer with antlers, plump bodies, and small legs. One deer appears to be fallen over or dead. So this would be a good alt text, and it would give the user a really good idea of what the image actually is. One thing to be aware of with alternate text is sometimes if you upload it from, say, a file, or you copy and paste from a website, it might actually put in a URL or a file path for the image. So it might be, something .jpeg, and that's actually not a good alt text. So you'll want to make sure and go in there and check and make sure it has good alt text. All right, for color and color contrast, you want to make sure not to rely on color alone to convey meaning. So, for example, always supplement color-coded information with text explanations. So over here, say you say, students listed in red made the honor roll. And so you list the students, but you just highlight the student in red. So if there's a student that has some sort of color issues, they're not able to see that color, they're not going to know if they made the honor roll. So you want to make sure and actually type out in the example below, honor roll next to the student that's highlighted in red. So we're not discouraging you from using color. You can use color, but make sure that you're using text explanations in addition to color. All right, as for links, it is really good practice to make sure that you use descriptive text in your links. So the link text needs to clearly explain the destination or the purpose of the link. So over here, I have a couple of good examples. The UCO homepage over here. The best example is the second one. So that's the descriptive text hyperlink is UCO homepage. And then next to it, you can put in parentheses the actual URL, but make sure you unhyperlink that. So this is good for blind and sighted users. So it's easy to see where this link is going to take me. I know it's going to take me to the UCO homepage, but say I print this material out, I also have the actual URL if I need to type it out on a web page. So another good purpose of having this descriptive text for screen readers, so students who may be blind, when the screen reader comes to read it, instead of reading the URL, so for instance, it would read www.uco.edu. Well, that doesn't really tell them, where that link is going to take them. So instead, it'll say link UCO homepage, and they'll know exactly where they're going. All right, tables, my favorite. So it is it's best practice to use tables just for data and not necessarily as structure for layout. So you want to make sure when you're using tables, especially in Word, that you designate the header row. So here the header row would be Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and I'll show you how to do that here in a second. So whenever the table is marked up correctly, in this example, it will read, when you get down to Sam, so it'll read Sam, Sunday 84, Monday 78, Tuesday 56. And if you didn't mark up the table correctly, it would just read it straight across. So Sam, 84, 78, 56, and so on and so forth. So they're not going to know if it's a blind student using a screen reader, what 84 is associated with. They're going to read Sam and then all these numbers, and they're going to say, well, I don't remember which order it was in, or I don't remember which day that's associated with. So it's really important to make sure and mark up those header rows. All right, next, list. A list is a really easy thing to mark up in Word, and it just helps emphasize points and sequence of steps. So for instance, a lot of the stuff that's important for accessibility is really for those people who are blind or have issues where they can't see the screen. So all of this stuff is kind of happening in the background, and it's not going to really affect sighted users as much, but it will improve accessibility for sighted and for any other student with a disability. So for instance, if a student was using a screen reader and they came into a list, the screen reader would tell them that they're coming into a list and how many items are in the list, and then it would read each item. So they know that all the items under this certain list are associated with, whatever the sentence was before. So it's really important to use that feature. All right, and fonts. So there's been a little bit of back and forth with whether it's good to use serif fonts or sans serif fonts, and really there's been a lot of mixed and inconclusive results in terms of which is best. Typically, serif fonts, so like Arial, stuff like that, are best for computer screens for readability, and sans serif are best for computer screens like Arial, and then like Times New Roman are better usually for printed material. But really, if you just choose a common font, one that most end users will have on their device, on their computer, you'll usually be fine. And you don't want to use a ton of different fonts within your document. Keep it under four, definitely keep it under 4 different fonts. You'll also want to avoid overly decorative fonts, especially with a lot of cursive. That can be hard to read. And you don't want to make your fonts too small either in your document. So definitely don't go under 10 points. It is possible for the user to zoom their screen, but that's just more work on their end, and the less zooming, the better. Excuse me. As far as capitalizing, as you can see here, too much capitalization is hard to read. So if you can use any of this stuff, you can use, but just use very sparingly. So you don't want to have an entire paragraph that's in all caps, because that's just hard to read. And also, if there's someone using a screen reader, it's not going to matter to them. It's not going to tell them that this whole sentence is in all caps and it's important. So if you do have down here, so under the bold and italics, you can use that to emphasize text for sighted users, and so it's actually an accessibility feature for sighted users, but it doesn't help blind users. So you'll want to make sure, if you have an important point and you have it in bold, you want to make sure and write it out in text before it say, important, or note, colon, and then put the important information in bold. And use underline sparingly. As most of you know, in our web saturated world, most web links are underlined. So if someone sees something, text that's underlined, they're like, oh, that might be a link, or they go to it and hover over with their mouse and they're like, oh, it's not working. I don't know what's wrong with this link. So Just use underline sparingly. I would only really use it in headings. All right, so to the good stuff. First of all, does anybody have any questions about any of those basic accessibility principles before moving on? All right. Oh, great, Blake. I'm glad that this is useful information to you. And Sarah, I believe we will send out uh, this PowerPoint to everyone that's attending today. So you'll have this information afterwards.
Correct. Yes, we should have your emails, and we will send this out.
Awesome, perfect. All right, so there are three ways that you can make your syllabus accessible. So the first thing, you can create it from scratch using proper markup, and I have actually already made a video tutorial that gives detailed instruction on how to create from scratch an accessible syllabus, and that will be provided on the CeCE website, and also, well, it's not on the website right now, I will say that, but it will be on the website by the end of the month. But if you would like to view that video earlier, just let Sarah know and she can also send that out to you. So the two things I'm going to go over right now are using an already accessible template and then marking up your syllabus that you've already created. So let me switch screens real quick. All right. Can everyone see the Word document?
If you cannot see it, just let us know in the chat box.
Okay, perfect. So this syllabus template is something I created, and it mirrors our quality rubric. So it has all the information that you would find in our rubric that is necessary for your online course. It's super simple. All you have to do is go in, you'll click on course name, type in your course name, semester and year. It's already marked up, so you're literally just going in and filling in the blanks. A good way to check to see if there's heading structure, you can go up here to the View tab and select the box that says Navigation Pane. And this is going to show you your heading structure. And you can do this with any Word document that you have. And it's actually a good way to check. I'll show you in the next example if you don't have any headings. So all your headings should line up here. And another great thing about this feature is you can come down here and click on whatever heading. Say the student's like, I want to look at the course schedule. So they come down here, click on it, and it takes them down to the course schedule. Another way you can check yourself for accessibility is using the built-in accessibility checker. So you can go over here to File, check for issues, and check accessibility. So over here on the right, you have your accessibility checker, and it will give you warnings, errors, and tips. And so right now it's giving me a warning that I have blank rows and columns in my table, and that's because I haven't filled anything in. So once you fill in this information, that warning will go away. Does anybody have any questions about the template? And this will also be available on our website, and we can send you this as well. Blake, yes. So for the most part, any markup that you do in Word will transfer over to PDF. You will still have to do a check in PDF, but so headings will transfer over, alternate text will transfer over, table markup will usually transfer over. It's not 100%. They're always improving the accessibility in PDF and Word and its compatibility, but for the most part, if you do it right in Word, it will make a fairly compliant PDF document, which is great. And next question, could you transform a current syllabus into one that, yeah, that's the next thing I'm going to go into is if you've already created your syllabus, what can you do to mark it up to make it compliant? All right, so we'll go on to the next one here. All right, so here is my course syllabus. So I've just made this up and I'm not sure if I have headings in it. So I'm going to go over here to the view ribbon, if you remember from earlier, and open up the navigation pane. All right, so there's nothing there. I do not have any headings. So I'll have to go in and create my headings. I'm also going to open up my accessibility checker. Thank you, Blake. That is my wonderful fur child, Zoe. She's 9 years old. All right. So here on the accessibility checker, you can see that it's telling me I have missing alt text in my picture, and it'll highlight it over here whenever you click on it. I'm missing alt text in the table. So it is a good idea to add alt text to the table just to give the user an idea of what the table's about or what's in it. If there's anything weird, or you could just say course schedule for 4 weeks, something like that, just to give a little bit of information before they jump into the table. And it's also telling me I have no header row specified. So to fix that, you would make sure that your cursor is in the header row. So in Word, it always has to be the first row. If you want a title or like add a title to your table, do it above the table, not actually in the table. So the first row of the table needs to be the header. So with your cursor in the first row, you go up here to the table tools, select layout, and then you're going to select repeat header rows. So as you can see visually, it didn't do anything to the table, but it took the error away. And then also you'll notice, I don't know if anyone's run into this issue whenever, say, a table goes past one page and you go to the next page, but the headers didn't follow. So this is a way to make sure that the headers are going to follow you to the next page. So let's tab over here and see if that happens for us. All right. So as you see, the headers followed me to the next page. So if your table extends past one page, it's easy for the user to just stay on this page and still know what each column represents. All right, so let's go up here and create our headings. So back on the home ribbon, all you have to do is put your cursor anywhere in the line in the sentence that you want to create the header, and then you'll go up here to the styles tab up here. So all of these different styles are markup. So you'll want to come up here and select heading 1 for your title. You can also, so if you don't like this style at all, you can go over to the design ribbon, and there's all these different formatting for the styles. So you can select any of these. You can change the color scheme. You can change the font. So say I wanted it to be Arial. And then go back to the Home tab. And you can also modify each heading. So you should only have one heading 1, that should be your title, and then everything else below it should be heading 2 through heading 6. And usually in a syllabus, you should be using heading 1, 2, and 3. I wouldn't think you would use much further than that. But you can go up here and you can right-click on whichever heading you want to change. Go to Modify, and there's all this formatting that you can change. So say you want your heading 1 to be centered on the page, you can do that. You want it to be bold, you can select that. You can change the font size, the color, the spacing. And even more in depth, you can go into format and change so many other things. I can't imagine you'd want to go into too much detail with it. But say you want it to be all caps, you can select all caps, and it'll make your heading 1 all caps. Select OK, and then I would come over here and select heading 1 again to make sure it applies the changes. And then you'll also notice in the navigation pane that it has brought up my heading 1 here. So next thing I want to go over and change my instructor information to heading 2. So again, I'll click on that. I'll select heading 2, and then you'll notice in the navigation pane, it made it a heading 2 under the course syllabus. And again, if you want to go in and say you wanted it to be underlined, you could go up to modify and select underline, and then you might want to give it a space. Select OK, and there you go, it's fixed. Now under About the Instructor, I'm going to make that a heading 3. Again, select it, and you'll see that it shows up over here. So on the navigation pane, that's kind of your confirmation that the headings are being marked up correctly. All right, so now that does that make sense, all the heading structure? It's pretty easy. Also, I have noticed sometimes in Word, say you're not getting the next heading level popping up after you've created a heading. You would go over here to this little arrow here in the corner, click on it. Oh, there we go. Then you would select options here. And then this little box here, it's already checked, so that's good, but sometimes it's not. And it says show the next heading when previous level is used. So that's really important. I've been stuck so many times where I'm like the next heading isn't coming up. So this is where you would find that. All right. So now my picture here needs alternate text. So to do that, I'm going to make sure I select it, right click, Format Picture. You'll come over here to this third icon, which is Layout and Properties. Select Alternate Text. And don't worry about typing in anything for the title. The title usually doesn't transfer over to PDF, and it's half the time sometimes not even read whenever a screen reader user is going through different images. It'll just read the description. So you'll just come over here and type a description. So for mine, I could say a tan and brown dog sitting in the grass. And you'll notice over here that the error went away for my picture. I still have an error for the table, so I can actually leave this pane up over here, the format picture, and I can select the table. I'm sorry. Yeah, select the table, and you'll do the same thing. Right click, but for table, you'll go to Table Properties, and then Alt Text. Again, don't need to worry about putting anything in the title. You'll just add the description here. Course schedule with 4 weeks and whatever information you think would be pertinent for a user to know before jumping into that table. All right, and so the next warning I have here, so we're not going to worry about the blank table rows or columns because that'll go away once you fill in all the information. Sorry, Blake, are there good strategies for alternate text? How do I know if I have done enough? So for alt text, I always tell people, imagine describing that picture to someone over the phone. And also, if you are using a picture, make sure that it's relevant to whatever information is around it. So I generally try to avoid using decorative images as they don't really add anything to the content. So whatever you want your students who are sighted to get out of that picture, just imagine that, and within 1 or 2 sentences, you don't want it to be too long, just a couple sentences, describe the image as you would if you were sighted and you thought to yourself, oh, this is what this image is. Does that make sense? Okay, great. All right, so with your hyperlink here, when a screen reader comes up to this, like I said earlier, it's going to try to read this as well as it can, but it's not going to be able to read everything correctly, and it could be confusing especially something really long like this. And after it gets done reading it, and the student could be like, well, that doesn't make sense. I don't even know where that's going to take me. So what you want to do, I'm going to remove the hyperlink. So I right click anywhere on the hyperlink. I'm going to remove it. And then I'm going to highlight it, copy it, and then I'm going to go over here to syllabus attachment. So it could be syllabus attachment, or you could say student information sheet, whatever it is that you want the student to know. I'm going to highlight it, right click, select hyperlink, and then on the address here, I'm going to paste the URL. And so you'll notice up here on text to display, it says syllabus attachment. So that's what's the text that's going to display instead of the URL. So I'll select OK. And then you'll notice that it went ahead and hyperlinked syllabus attachment. So this way, whenever a sighted user, for one, is going to see this and say, oh, that's a link to the syllabus attachment. And if someone printed it out and they were, had to take it to the library, and they could say, oh, well, here I have the URL if I need to type it in. But also, if there's a screen reader user using this document and they come down to this link, it'll say link syllabus attachment instead of link http:// and just go through that whole thing. So it'll really help everyone out in the end. All right, and lastly, I think here I have how to create a list. So say you have a list, whether it be numbered or a bulleted list, and you need to go in and create it and say it's not marked up already. So you can come in here, you can highlight it, and then up here, so you're still in your home ribbon, under paragraph, there's a bulleted list here. There's a numbered list here, and then there's also a multi-level. So if you want to do like a 1 and then an A and then a Roman numeral, you can use the multi-level list. But for this one, I'm just going to use a bulleted list. So I can just select that. The default's usually the circle. I was messing around with this earlier, and I have the spade. But so if you don't want the circle, you want something else, you can select this drop-down arrow. And it'll give you some library items that are most commonly used. So any of these would work. But say you want, I don't know, something that's not in the list. You can define a new bullet, and then you can go to symbol. And so here you have all these symbol options that you can use. So say you want to do an arrow. So you select the arrow, hit OK, and it changes it. A good way to know and this is instead of just going up and inserting a symbol. So you could also just as easily come up here, insert, and do a symbol. But this isn't going to mark this up as a list. It's just a symbol next to a sentence. So that's not going to mean anything for someone that's using a screen reader. So you want to make sure and use a true bulleted or numbered list. And a way you can tell that you actually have a list without going up here or selecting everything is you can just put your cursor anywhere in the list, and if you look up here and it's highlighted this darker gray, you'll know that everything in here is already in a list. So you can also do this with numbers as well. All right, I think that about concludes the presentation. Does anyone have any questions about anything that we went over today?
Steph, I believe Dorothy had a question. I'm not sure if you were able to answer it or not, but
I'm sorry.
Do you know whether all of the word styles are compliant?
Okay, so do you mean everything up here in terms of like the headings? Yes. So I will say use everything in Word to your advantage. So everything in here, I mean, it's created to make things easier for you and to make things accessible for those that can't just easily look at the document. So any of these, however, I wouldn't, so any of these like strong or emphasis or things like that, if you use these for in a sentence, that's fine. A screen reader will not pick up on it, but just don't use those as headings. So use actual headings for the headings. And then if you want to use an emphasis, you can, but that's not going to matter for someone that's using a screen reader, if that makes sense. So just the main takeaway from using the styles are using the headings because that's going to mark it up correctly. It's going to create this navigation over here. You can also create outlines and table of contents if you have true headings in your document. So, if a student wanted to create a table of contents and none of the headings were marked, then they wouldn't be able to do it. Is the subtitle also okay to use? Yeah, I mean, it's okay to use, but it's again, the screen reader won't read it. It also won't even read titles. So I generally suggest using a heading 1 for your title, and then do heading 2, 3, 4, and so on. Yeah, no problem. Okay, so is there a good concise guide for what size, color, font style, etc. is best to use for any all accessibilities besides use of a screen reader? So So for that, yeah, we do have, there are a lot of good resources that are on our website. I would really suggest looking at because there are so many different rules and guidelines and best practices. Uh, but as far as font size and color and all that, kind of what I referred to earlier, don't use small font, don't use uh, overly decorative font, so like um, a lot of cursive or anything like that. So you want to make sure and use a font that most people have on their computers. So most common fonts, things like that. Color, use color sparingly. You can use color, but don't use it as the only way to convey meaning. And you'll also want to make sure and check the color contrast ratios for the foreground and background. So there are certain color combinations that just are not good together, green and red being one of them. Um, yeah, so and that's a good point. So the accessibility checker isn't going to check things like color or font style, things like that. So it's kind of up to you to know, and you can kind of look at your syllabus and just say, is it easy for you to read, or are there some things that are a little dodgy here and there? Oh, I should probably check on this. Um, but WebAIM is a good resource. We'll send out a link for that. Um, the WCAG 2.0 is actually the guidelines that we follow. They align with Section 508, which is the federal law that we also follow. But they have very detailed information on everything you could ever want to know about web accessibility, document accessibility, that kind of thing. I hope that answered your question.
Steph, you have a couple of tutorials you've already made, correct, regarding how to make some other documents compliant. Can we send those out?
Yeah, we can send those out as well. I have a tutorial on how to make a accessible PowerPoint, accessible Word document, how to insert alt text in PDF because PDF is a little different than Word and PowerPoint. It's a different platform, so there's some different things in there. But yeah, I have some tutorials on that, how-to guides. Yeah, we can definitely send that out. That's not a problem. And it'll also all of this information, all these tutorials, how-to guides, resources to outside links, like WebAIM and WCAG. That'll all be available on our website by the end of this month. So feel free to check there as well. Yeah, Dorothy, we can definitely get that information to you for sure.
And as we're wrapping up, are there any final questions anyone has for Steph?
Yeah, and please feel free to email me if you have any questions. We're here to help you. I don't expect anybody to be an expert in accessibility. I'm not even an expert yet. I'm still learning something new every single day. But yeah, don't be afraid to reach out. Shoot me an email. Here, I'll put my email here. Um, yeah, and if you have any questions about any documents, any resources that you're using, um, please reach out and I will be happy to look over those for you, give you suggestions, whatever